Hello and welcome to Season A, the platform where we speak truth to power. Today we're going to talk about the continued discussion around the allegations to do with subsidy, the oil subsidy, and the ongoing, allegations of fraud. The fuel subsidy regime and allegations of fraud. So let's listen to this man here, Peter ESELE, I think it is. We'll check the name in a minute.
The former governor of Bauchi State, who also happened to have chaired that subcommittee of the presidential task force to end or for subsidy removal.
So let's listen to this.
But he mentioned the name there in a member of that committee as well, who happens to be joining us today. Mr. Peter ESELE is the former president of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, and he joins us virtually. Mr. ESELE, thank you for joining us.
So let's hear what he has to say here.
I think
Peter ESELE is muted at a minute. He'll be back up again.
Mr.
So
ESELE,
unmute yourself.
can you hear us now?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good, fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, fantastic. Mr. ESELE, I'm sure you've been keeping tabs on the conversation around fuel subsidy, but yesterday it came to a head when we had the chairman of that committee that you were part of tell us that a lot of things were discovered and no action was taken owing to lack of political will. What's your stand on this?
I think there was nothing new that the chairman said yesterday.
Nothing new. See?
It's something we all know. This has been happening over the years. And then when we talk about the issue of scam around subsidy, everybody knows there's always been scam around subsidy. And if I'm even to tell you now what's playing out, this administration has been on for almost a month. Almost a month now, we still don't have an accurate figure of how many liters we consume every day. So if somebody tells you that there is fraud around it, yes.
Remember what I said about the powers.
And recommendations was made to government, and government did nothing about it. You even heard when I actually watched that program yesterday, and there was a point where the former chairman, former governor of Bauchi, alluded to the fact that somebody telling the president that he's making too much money, that subsidy should go. If you have a political will, that in itself, that person should have been arrested to tell the president how he's making the money. If the money is legal or illegal, then the person have to make a refund. One of the biggest problems we've always had is the issue of enforcement of our laws. So once people have no respect for the laws, so they can do whatever they want.
Exactly.
Well, let's step back a little bit, because there are those who have wondered when we keep saying that subsidy is a scam, subsidy is a scam. Let's break it down. What was the plan behind the subsidy, and how was it that it turned into a scam at the end of the day?
Now, the plan behind the subsidy is, let me just break it down. Let's take, for example, the landing cost of your product, and is 100 naira. And then you add the various profit margins, and then finally it's supposed to sell at about 121 naira. Then at the pump price now goes for 70 naira. So the difference between your landing cost and various margins that are added, which push it up to 120, and you are not selling at 70 naira, so the subsidy is the 50 naira. So if you say we are consuming about 90 million liters a day, so you multiply the 50 naira times 90 million liters. So that becomes the subsidy that the government will pay to whoever is bringing the product into the country.
It's crazy.
So that is where the subsidy comes in.
Fraud.
Okay. So now, where are the likely areas of fraud that we also discovered then is, first, you don't even know the quantity of product that you consume on a daily basis. Somebody tells you that we're consuming 90 million. And then you actually know that, I think it was earlier this year or sometime last year, where NNPC and Custom had a disagreement. While NNPC was talking about 90 million, Custom said, no, it should be about 60 million liters. And that now becomes its own challenge. So what we have there is, was there any audit carried out to actually let us know how much we are consuming, how many liters we are consuming daily? So a lot of these and many more recommendations were made to the government. You also look at the issue of the refineries. I know sometimes somebody's going to say, oh, labor unions were the ones that fought against refinery privatization. I'll say, no, that's not true. Now, what did we do? I had two former presidents before I became president of Pengasson. And what we did was recommend the NLNG model, which is 51-49, whereby the core operator has a substantial share, and then a private sector will run the refineries. We had several of our National Executive Council meetings where other members were so pissed with members of Pengasson from NNPC and said, we are tired of having this conversation in our National Executive Council meeting. Come with a recommendation before the next Executive Council meeting. And they came up with this recommendation and said they think the best way the refineries could work is partial privatization, whereby the core operator would now be the one to manage it. And then the NLNG model. Everybody knows that NLNG right now contribute billions of dollars to the federal government annually as dividend payment. So our problem has always been systemic, our problem has always been structural, and our problem has also been lack of value. We don't, what do we stand for? What kind of country do we want to have? So until we're able to answer that, this scam will continue in different directions.
So if I could just come in there, you're talking about the model, the 51-49 model, the NLNG model that was recommended, and I think that was recommended also in that report, if I get you correctly. How is it then that if we go by this analogy or this or your submission now, then practically everybody that was in government from the time that report was submitted till now would have questions to answer, and even those in the petroleum industry like the NNPC as well. So how is it that nobody has been brought to book?
If you say what's in government, earlier this morning you were talking about Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. That is what is in government. You take 8 years to construct an express road, or more than 8 years. That's what's in government. You start wondering. You start wondering if I'm not questioning their Nigerianness, but you start wondering, how can we do this? How will you explain that since 1999 your refineries can't work? How do you explain that? Now I'll give you an example. How do you explain that? It's something you cannot stomach.
We need to be using this. Citizens, we need to be active participants in our governance.
The workers there, what would they be doing? They want to work, but what you have is that there are people making a kill out of it, and they will continue to import this product.
That's it.
I'll give you an example. The price of crude fell to $40. I as president of TUC, fell to $40. And I went to the then minister and I said, Minister, this is the opportunity to deregulate and let everybody get out of this subsidy conversation. Let's just end it now. And the minister told me, why? I said, at $40, this is the price this is going to be the price at the gas station. So what you will do instantly is that the price is going to drop. And for the price to peak again, it's going to take about 6-7 months. So by then, Nigerians will get used to the fluctuation of these prices. And once Nigerians are knowing that, okay, when the prices drop, we are paying less. And you know what the minister told me? The minister told me, no, we are not going to do it. It's an opportunity for government to save money. I said, what are you saying that? So then I went to Governor Shomole, Governor Shomole. I went to him, then Governor Shomole of Edo State. And I said, this is the opportunity. Because he too, as governor, he has also seen a lot of things playing out in that sector. And I said, this is it. So Shomole left Edo, went straight to the villa, had a meeting with the president, and said, this is the time to do it. And the president now set up a committee. The committee was headed by then late Rewanu Lukman. And then before we know what is happening, the government did nothing at the committee level. And I said, the prices are going to spike. And then when the prices started increasing, the government have one thing. There's one thing Nigerian government does very well. Once they start losing revenue, is that they devalue the currency. So it's later, 90 days later, government devalued the currency. Then they now called me and said, oh, we want to bring down the price now. I said, it's too late. If you bring down the price, you are going to have fuel scarcity, and you're going to have queues, because the marketers have already importing products into the country based on that old price. So once you devalue, they will not bring in new product, and then we had scarcity. So one of the things that you have, one of the challenges we face is that government has no policy trust for that sector. So what they have is ad hoc measures. So if you have a plan for a particular sector, you follow it to the letter. And government also lack discipline, forward-thinking approach to envisage the challenges that will come.
Well, certainly the challenges that are coming right now are facing us headlong because in addition to subsidy removal, and we know that prices are going to fluctuate, we now have the flotation of the naira. Some people say it's devaluation of the naira. I mean, you decide what it is that where you cling to this time around. But what we do know is that the naira against the dollar has now gone up. You need more naira to buy just $1. So I'm looking at the effect on ordinary people, and now ordinary people are asking, okay, if they say this thing was a scam, at least we're buying it at 130, as the case might be, 180, 190, as the case might be. We didn't buy it for more than 200 naira unless there was scarcity. And that was the experience of the ordinary man. Now we're buying it at 500 plus, as the case is. Is it very difficult to catch these people, to punish these people and clean up the sector, remove the corruption in that sector? How widespread or how deep was the corruption in your own estimation, and what would it have cost to say that government wanted to fight this corruption headlong?
I don't think it's difficult. First, you have to look at the issue of the political will to do it. That's why I talked earlier about enforcement of our laws. It's a whole chain. Somebody brings in the product, the person has his own. Then when you look at what we also discover, maybe between 2 to 3 million liters of PMS goes across the border every day.
Wow.
And there are no custom officers there. So they too also become part of the scam.
The ring of scam.
Because for you to have that get through the border, the custom must allow that. Because even you are not using keke napep to move petroleum product across the border. Each tanker you use, the lowest is about 33,000 liters. So if it's keke napep, you can say, okay, fine. Or motorcycle, you say, okay, fine. We didn't know where they hit the petrol. So you have that. And then you also have the marketers. Yeah. You also have those who are bringing in the product, those who are clearing it. So it's a whole chain. And I think what happened was that government also abdicated its responsibility, because it's not the fault of the ordinary man that somebody is stealing petrol. So if people are stealing petrol, if people are manipulating the price, or people are scamming your citizens, your responsibility as government is to bring those who are responsible to book. If at the end of the day, nobody's arrested, nobody's brought to book, so what you have is that your citizens are now at the mercy of the shark. Because
This is why I keep saying to us that we need to participate in our governance. I've said it time without number now. Uncountable times now. We need to exercise these powers. Sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom the government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. And of course, how do we use that power? Through participation, active participation in our governance. The participation by the people in the government shall be in accordance with the provisions of this constitution. Because why? Sovereignty belongs to us, as stated under Section 14(2)(a). That's what we need to do. We are not the politicians will not prosecute themselves. But if we put pressure on them, from starting from our local government community, local government authority, and from within our local government, from where we get our sovereignty, and we work collectively, we can demand and insist that the government actually prosecute those involved in this fuel subsidy scam, or get 80% of the money, back, so we can plow it back into the refineries immediately. There are steps we can take. Don't feel helpless. But the question is, are you ready to join us in this struggle to take these steps to improve your lives and that of your coming generation? That's the question. Let's carry on.
Also watch the former president or the president of African Development Bank saying that, talking about the scam, and also saying subsidy was there to subsidize the rich. The way the country is right now, the rich will survive.
Yeah.
If you have 2 cars, you start using one. They will always find a way. The middle class will also find a way to survive. The ordinary man, the poor man, virtually has nowhere to go.
Yep.
You just talked about, I heard you're talking about egg is now 2005. There are places in Lagos, it's 3,000.
Peter Erese is right.
Now, you need to ask yourself, if we want to develop as a country, we must have what I call a composite touch to our economic planning. It's not to say you want to you want to kill one particular group in the economy and then allow the other one to survive. No, economy is driven by the middle class. The middle class are the people that have disposable income. Whether you talk about hotels, you talk about going to shopping malls, you talk about living the middle way of life. It's not the wealthy that actually drives the economy. It's the middle class ability for people to move from point A to point B. And that is lacking right now. And then the former president, President Buhari's administration, when you pass the PIA, automatically subsidy was gone when PIA became a law in the country. What did we do? Or what did the government do? The government knew subsidy was going to go. Did they make any plan to say, okay, when this effect comes, this is how we are going to mitigate it? That too also shows lack of forward thinking, or what I would say, lack of critical analysis before you make your move.
These are some of the big questions. I mean, in terms of, because right now people are wondering, what exactly is the plan for us? I mean, yes, it's all well and good. We described the way subsidy was operated as a tumor. It has to go. It, was cancerous to the Nigerian economy, etc., etc. But what exactly is the plan to ensure that the patient, survives after the surgery is done? That's a big question, and that is now making them ask the questions as to the people who actually cause all of these pains. Do you think that government has shown sufficient drive in the regard? I know that as you've described, the chain is long, it's widespread, but some people will say at least there needs to be scapegoats, and people will not know who will get caught in the scapegoat net, whereby yes. There are so many people who perpetrated this thing and everybody was doing it. But as you said, if the messaging is not right, doesn't it encourage many more people to, misuse subsidy, which will be applied in many other sectors? It could be in agriculture. It could be in many other places. Have you seen this drive on the part of government to say, we need to bring people who made life difficult for ordinary people under the subsidy regime to book?
Now, if you talk about the current administration, my hope is that it continues on its trajectory. You are talking about subsidy for petrol, and I'm going to tell you, the day they open up the CBN, that for agriculture is going to be worse.
Agriculture,
it's everywhere. That of agriculture is going to be worse because there's no system in place to how do you even obtain this loan. Because if we talk about the NMPC, if you talk about the petroleum subsidy, if you go to agriculture
is even worse now.
It's systemic. Our challenge is systemic. And when you look at the former administration, they also lack that ability to say, okay, fine, there's nothing wrong with admitting, oh, we've made a mistake. And one of the ways you admit or you look at the errors you've made is to carry out an audit. I would advise you go and read the Accountant General of the Federation's audit report of the various ministries and government agencies. If it was in the private sector, none of those MDs or DGs in those ministries or government agencies will hold that office. Not anymore. Check the Auditor General's report. You check even the last report by the National Assembly, and you still wonder, why would these people still be holding those offices? So if somebody knows that, oh, because I know who is the president, I know who is the minister, and that's one of the challenges that we face. Where are you from? Where are you from? Are you a Northerner or are you a Southerner? What religion do you belong to? What is your ethnic base? So those are fulcrum of how decisions are made or how people are appointed. So when you have that as the base, you are never going to get quality people. So somebody who knows that the only way I can sustain or I can keep my job is to say whatever the president wants to hear or to say whatever the minister wants to hear. And whatever order the minister gives to me, I'll carry it out. Can you imagine a civil servant or a head of civil service investigating a minister in Nigeria? That's what happened in the administration of Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson was investigated by somebody in the civil service of the United Kingdom and indicted him. And that also led to his resignation. So even DGs here, that can't happen here. So what we also need to ask ourselves is, now subsidy is taken away because I know government, everyone became frustrated about the subsidy payment, and government is broke. They actually don't have money. So when they don't have money, the only thing they had to do was to say, okay, this subsidy needs to go. Now the subsidy is gone, fine. So what is the next thing? How do you keep the people? Or
refinery is the next thing. Refinery.
To see a better tomorrow.
Fix the refineries.
I'm optimistic that there will be a better tomorrow. But the short-term fix to give hope is what is needed now. And what would I have suggested if I'm in their shoes? First, the last admission notice was going to happen. You invest in gas. We have Innocent, for example. You just give them 2 years. Say, I want you to retool or reconfigure your plant, and then do something about going ahead to ensure that you make buses available. The first thing right now is to make public transport cheaper. And you make those buses available, and gas is cheaper, gas is cleaner. So you have a 2 years to plan for what you are doing now. And then you go ahead and say a place like Lagos, and you say this is how much those buses that is coming from federal government or coming from the state government must carry a particular passenger. And then you also give the drivers incentive. If you run these buses for a particular number of years, you pay 10% of it. You pay 10%, and after 4 years, it becomes your vehicle. Because what you are trying to do now is that you may recoup 50% of it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you make it easier for the patient to stay alive.
So let me come in now, Mr. ESELE. I mean, one of those recommendations been put on the table, quite all right. You're looking forward, but a lot of things have happened in the past, and it would seem as though we're trying to move on quickly from decades of mismanagement, of corruption, scam, just outright rascality, it would seem, in that sector. Just move on and then just face the future. But what about reparation for all of those things that were done in the past? I was reading a former finance minister, Dr. Ngozi Kojewela's book about how they had removed subsidy, phased it out in 2004. Oil prices went up. They had to return it in 2006. There was a lot of protest from labor, naturally. And then we just went back into it. And I just imagine if we had actually stayed, at that point where we removed subsidy, 2004, and just moved on from there. I just imagine what kind of nation finance it would have had if we had good managers. But subsequently, we've had
people have just been getting away with looting and looting and looting, with no accountability,
finance,
no jailing, nothing.
Particularly now, we've had different management of NNPC. We've had committees at the National Assembly. Essentially, people who are given the responsibility to manage the nation's resources well. And what we're saying is that for those stretch of years, they participated in this scam. That's what we're saying. So we need to actually talk about getting the right consequences for those years of mismanagement. And I'd like you to speak to it, because you're still a member of the APC, if I'm correct. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So your party has been in charge for now more than 8 years, had the opportunity to sort this scam out, and this is where we are right now.
No.
So is your party going to be taking responsibility for at least those 8 years of perpetrating or being a part of that scam?
They have to take responsibility. Because the last 8 years, you would not say the party wasn't part of. The party was who was elected. It was the APC that was elected. So the party has to take responsibility for that. And again, my hope is that the current president will also be able to clean it up. The party also have an opportunity now to clean things up, because there are a lot of errors that were made in the past 8 years. First of all, the former president, I would say, basically had no clue. I'm sorry to use that word, about what was happening. I'll give another example. I was invited by the transition committee, and they asked me, what do I think should be done? That was way back in 2015. And I went to the committee and I said, this president had what I call a very huge political capital. A huge political capital he can deploy. And then because of that,
fix the refineries.
And then he also had, the government also has what we call a honeymoon period. And the honeymoon period gives you opportunity to do the heavy lifting. So I said, this president can do the heavy lifting. And the heavy lifting then also, I even went beyond the oil and gas, and I talked about Nigerian Ports Authority. I don't see any reason why you cannot clear whatever is coming into this country in 14 days. And I also talked about NIMASA. There are other agencies, and they said, okay, fine. And then to look at it, nothing happened. Then later I met Ayatollah, who was also one of the chairman of that committee, and I said, what happened? He said they just didn't have the political will to implement it. And then you go to the next step, the 3 windows that they had. I told them they have only 3 windows. Then when they moved from 97 to 145, they also reached out to me and said, okay, what is your take now? This is the state of the financial state of the economy or of the government. I said, this is the final window because election is approaching. If you don't do it now, you may never do it again. And then the next thing is that they went public to say, okay, subsidy is off, without doing the work. So one of the challenges that the political parties, not just APC, from 1999 has faced, is that they put square pegs in round holes.
Yep.
So when you do
Excuse
that,
me a minute, please.
nobody comes to tell you, okay, this is the direction. It's not just APC. We had Obasanjo from 1999 to 2007. The same thing we are talking about now also played out. Then we had Yaradua Jonathan. The same thing we are talking about also played out.
Yeah.
So it is our hope now that you have President Bola Tinubu, that may also look different.
Right.
He has started very well, and I was telling somebody, I said, if he does not make his move within the first 30 days, he will be sucked into the system. And how is this done? First thing is that the president comes on, the president relatives will go ahead and swoop around all the ministry, looking for the eggheads, looking for how to get in. And then the various civil servants will now look at, okay, where is the weakest point? And from the weak point, they start coming in, and then all manner of information start getting to the president. But the difference here now is that this president gives you a feeling that he knows what he wants to do.
Well, Mr. Sele, at that point, I'd like to come in, pardon me, because of time, so we can accommodate some of these major issues. Again, I'd like us to hit the nail on the head so that we can leave this conversation with action points for government, so that we know that at least this government, yes, has work to do, but can also make reparations, I keep saying that, using that word, for things that have happened in the past. I don't know if people are afraid to mention names because obviously people have fed fat, are probably still feeding fat from this country. And as you said, the rich will always survive, but maybe not for the poor, multidimensionally poor Nigerians, over 100 million. So at least for the sake of those Nigerians, maybe we can begin to hit the nail on the head. As far back as 2006, subsidy payment at the prevailing exchange rate was $2 billion. The World Bank was saying recently that if we were to continue with subsidy payments, we're going to run into, what, trillions of naira, money that we don't even have. And clearly that money will be going into the pockets of people, as has been happening for decades now. So people have literally become billionaires as a result of this scam. So why are people, even government, afraid to mention the names, put out those names, probe those people appropriately, and get justice for the over 100 million Nigerians who are poor, who have been at the receiving end of this? Why?
Good question.
It's very clear, lack of political will. And whether you also like it or not, some of these players are also part of the government.
Yeah, they are.
You can't, take for example, you can't steal. I can come to channels now and move your camera without somebody inside channels allowing me to do that. First, there must be the security man at the gate that will be compromised, who will allow me to get in, and then before I get to your studio, I move the camera. So first of all, people in government are also part of it. And then we also have those people who are also marketers or whatever. That's also why I also talk about campaign finance reform. If somebody comes to you now, he's stealing our subsidy money, and then the next thing, the person is giving you 1 billion naira for your campaign. How are you going to move against that person?
You can't.
So those are some of the issues that we have to look at. But the fact is they lack political will, and I would say go ahead, audit the subsidy payment over the years. I will support the president if he wants to do that. Audit the CBN, because CBN is also part of it. So the whole scam is that somebody needs to pay for it. I concur with what you said about the issue of reparation. Because if there are no consequences, it will continue, not just in the petroleum sector. It will continue at the port, it will continue in the agriculture, it will continue at CBN, it will continue at the Massa, it will continue at all the various MDGs.
Mr. ESELE, if I may come in there, it may seem like, we can't talk enough about reparation and a demand for accountability of those involved. I'm glad you watched the interview yesterday, and Mr. Yuguda made bold to even say that the NNPC was involved. You can't rule out the participation of the NNPC in this fraud. So can we begin to say that, if we're demanding accountability and ensuring that those who have been involved are brought to book, that we should begin to look at the administration of that corporation, especially, in the past 8 years of the Buhari administration, and demand that the group managing directors up until this current group CEO of the corporation be made to answer questions about this so-called scam. Because Mr. Yuguda said that subsidies are even paid for pipelines that do not exist.
Pipelines that don't exist. I mean, people, we need to wake up.
From NNPC, because NNPC is the one bringing in the product.
Yeah.
You start from NNPC.
Start from NNPC.
How do you even think about it? The current GMD was the first GMD of NNPC to show us an audit report in over 30 years. Who runs a company without an audit report? So the NNPC have been running without audit report for over 30 years. The current GMD was also the first one to let us know that this is how much the moribund Kaduna refinery, where nothing is happening, this is how much is costing the country to maintain. For me, I saw that as an opportunity for government to make their move. Rather, I would say the glass is half full rather than half empty. Because first thing was, okay, this is the problem and the challenges facing us in NNPC. So what do we do about it? So he starts from the NNPC. Then you go to the marketers. And then you also now have to go to formerly the DPRO, that they now called, that has a new name now. And then they're all part of it, custom. There are documents that you can go with all of these to say, okay, fine, who are those behind this? And then you take 1, 2, 3, or 4. You can't bring everybody to book in all of that, but you must take the kingpins, those major players who either by corruption or by dereliction of duty may have caused the fortune, may have caused the government or the country to lose so much money.
Yeah, I agree.
You say people are not mentioning names. Yes, one of the reasons why you have people not mentioning names on TV is also nobody wants to be liable. You may not even like somebody coming here to mention names. But the key here now is there are several reports before government that government can act on.
Now, will they act on it? Will they act on it?
The former Minister of Aviation and former Governor of Bauchi State is coming out to say this now. I mean, he's a chairman, board of trustees of the APC Professionals Forum. So he's been a member of the APC for a very long time. So the question is, why, if members of the political ruling party are in full acknowledgement of subsidy being a scam in the past 8 years, why didn't they lead the advocacy, vociferously that subsidy had to go? Some would ask, is he trying to curry favor from the current president?
I may not want to say that. I may not want to interpret it that way. But one thing is very clear. But don't also forget he was a former governor. So Nigeria is one place that I found from all my exposures and my travels and reading of various political systems across the world. Nigeria is the only place where you see a governor complain. A governor will complain. A president will complain.
That's all they come and complain. But they're the ones. They are the ones
in. The reason why you are paid is to find solution to the problem.
Thank you. So this guy is on point.
He's not supposed to complain. And if you go back to even the governors forum, I will go back to when I said we really had a very active governors forum. The last governors forum, if I'm to rate them, I would say this is one of the worst governors forum we had in the last 8 years, in the sense that they were not asking critical questions. Commissioners for finance will go to Abuja, and there's no money for the federation to share. And they said all the money has gone to subsidy. Nobody was asking for accountability. Governors were not asking for accountability. No committee was set up to say, okay, how is this? How is it that there's no money in the federation account? I watched the GMB said NNPC made profit that runs into trillions in one of TV stations. Somebody sent it to me. And I said, if NNPC can make such over 3 trillions as profit or revenue,
3 trillion.
Then how did that just happen when they suddenly just became a limited liability company?
3 trillion profit in July when they just become a limited liability company. We're not asking questions. And that's why I'm encouraging us to do this. Look, this is the one I want you to remind you of. Sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom the government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. That's the power we possess. We need to begin to use that. We have to become active participants in our governance, because the politicians they're not going to do it. It is left to you and me. You are hearing them saying it. If we do not get up in all our local government areas and begin to go to the local chairman, the state House of Assembly members, the House of Reps, the senators, the governors, and say, look, we are telling you to go to the National Assembly right now and ensure that those who have been named, who've been part of the process where billions have gone missing, they should all be made to account for the money. 80% of the money should be sent back into the coffers of the government in the meantime, whilst their case is being reviewed, whilst they're being going through the trial, and then after that, because this is what is going on is unsustainable. And again, of course, the reason why you have those powers is because and how is to be able to use it. And how do you use it? You participate in your governance by using Section 14(2)(c). The participation by the people in the government shall be in accordance with the provisions of this Constitution. I want to keep reminding us that in the end, the government will not do anything. We, the people, we are the ones who have to become active participants in our governance. You're hearing that we keep making excuses and nothing will happen. But if we get on the case, make sure that they follow that rule of law, because that's the law that's binding on all of them. They know that. And us. Let's go ahead.
So these are questions that we expect governors or critical stakeholders to answer. You see, nobody is trying.
So, Mr. ESELE, why the ground support from governors now under this?
Governors should not be making complaining. They need to be. They're there to do. They're there to solve proper solutions.
Because governors need more money. They need more money, and when governors are broke, they're also looking for more money. But what is also lacking in
they didn't need money in the past.
See this?
You see, the difference now is every day with devaluation, every day the revenue they are getting is shrinking by the day. Governors will tell you that since the beginning of this year, NNPC will say there's no money to share because the whole money has gone into subsidy. So governors want the
So NNPC is sitting on the subsidy, on the money of the nation.
Is always on the federal government.
Wow.
Provision of water is the responsibility of the
government.
State and local government, we don't put attention on what they are doing with the money coming in. You just made mention of
active participation in our governance.
When Ngozi was Minister for Finance, what she was doing was that she was giving us monthly publication of allocation to each state. The governors fought her to a standstill. That after about 6 months or so, she had to stop. Because the governors did not want the people to know the amount of money coming to their state as allocation.
So, Mr. ESELE, this
you see, this is why
past administrations lacked to bring.
This is why we keep saying our active participation in our governance is of immense importance. On this platform, we show you how you can go via the National Bureau of Statistics to check your local government authority allocation and the state allocation as well. And these are the information that we need to use to hold them to account and say, we know last month, this money, this is how much you got. Our roads, our water, our lights has not been fixed. Use that money to fix it. These are the kind of steps we need to be taking. It requires us to be active participants in our own governance at the foundation, at the very foundation, at the local government level. We need to do that, and of course into state and of course federal.
Perpetrators to book and to end subsidy. Does this current administration have it now to ensure that those who have stolen the nation's commonwealth are brought to book?
I think so far they are making all the right moves. So far they are making all the right moves, and I will say I'll give the current president a benefit of a doubt. That okay, fine, he has done the heavy lifting. I expect you do heavy lifting in your honeymoon period, and your honeymoon period does not go beyond 100 days. So my worry now is that he has to quickly start putting in place stopgap actions to ensure
fix the refineries.
The patient, as Mookbe alluded to, the patient is not dead before the progress starts coming to fore.
Well, man, that analogy gets me every time. But, this patient naturally should not be powerless. It should not be at the mercy of these people. In fact, this patient put those people in charge.
Exactly.
So that he or she, as the case may be, flourishes.
This is why I remind us. Again, I'm going to put it up. In our communities right now, the most important thing is for us to begin to be active in our governance. Without us holding those we elect to office to account, nothing will change. And how do we hold them to account? By participating in our governance, questioning them, demanding they provide answers, and reminding them that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, from whom the government, through its constitution, derives all its powers and authority. There is no constitutional authority more powerful than that office of we, the citizens. We are the most powerful, and it is time that we use that office to hold those we elect to office to account, because sovereignty belongs to us, and we hold them to account by participating in our governance as mandated in the Section 42(c). the participation of the people by the people in the government shall be in accordance with the provisions of this constitution. And that is why you have the powers. But we need to do this collectively in each of our local government areas. All 704 local government areas must begin to be active participants in their local government, in the state, federal. We need to be active, watching and questioning them and reminding them that that's what the constitution says. They need to abide by that. They need to ensure that those who carry out wrongdoing are properly prosecuted, that our judiciary is independent, and the legislature is not being used as a tool to try and get around the laws. These are things that we have to really be very, very vocal about right now. Let's carry on.
The labor movement has been vehemently against subsidy removal time and again, saying that this is not clearly the way, this is what the average Nigerian gets from government, and you want to take it away. So labor clearly has also been a part of keeping that scam ongoing, I would say, because from time immemorial, as they will say, labor has always been against subsidy removal. 2004, eventually came back 2006, then the Jonathan administration 2012. Yes, this current government was also in partnership with labor against it. So why is labor always in support of that scam, if I can just ask that?
Okay, let me just, I hope I have enough time to give you an analogy of what also happened. The first town hall meeting that was held under President Jonathan in Lagos, Labour was also behind the design of those town hall meetings. Labour was part of it to say, okay, let's have 6 town hall meetings in the 6 geopolitical zone, so that Nigerians will be aware. Because what Labour wanted was also to carry Nigerians along. So at the end of the day, we only had one. And I also had an interface with the president. And the president said, suddenly we woke up one morning and they said subsidy is gone. And I met the president. I said, President, this wasn't what was discussed. Why don't we do the 6 geopolitical zone? And the president said he has a report that every Nigerians have already accepted the fact that subsidy need to go. And the first thing I said, Mr. President, this is not going to fly. Because first you have to get your timing right. For you to be able to make any decision that will be acceptable, you are not seeing anybody on the street now because the sitting president got his timing right. You can't just increase subsidy, take away subsidy when people are coming out of the Yuletide. It was just after Christmas and the pressure of finances. And that became his own albatross that cost him. I think that would have cost him his election because everybody was really upset after that. Labour actually is not against it. You may see that we have, what people don't know is that my constituency is Pengassan. Pengassan have always consistently said subsidy need to go, but fix the refineries.
Yes, fix the refineries. Fix the refineries.
What President Shino Luwo,
that is what should be doing. Fix the refineries.
He's a president before I became president. Now, we still went on to be talking about fixed refineries.
And that's a simple answer.
So if you see the president of Nigerian Labour Congress, if you listen to Joe Ajero is still saying it, that we cannot have an import-based deregulation.
By the way, they burnt out Joe Ajero's house yesterday.
Discussion. But government just won't do the needful. So those are the challenges that policy making is responsibility of government, not responsibility of Labour.
Mr. Sele, this conversation is not a conversation that would end anytime soon. But at the end of the day, the question of consequence management still comes to mind. You talked about one of the biggest challenges we have in Nigeria. We've gone down this road, and now subsidy has been removed. But then there are still those who have wronged the nation and wronged the future of this nation. So in your closing thoughts, what would you say should be done, as some would say, low-hanging fruit that can be done now to ensure that those who will be stepping into this, now that it looks as if the market's been deregulated, what should be done to stop any other person from thinking to wrong this nation and the future?
Simply, whoever violates the law is made to face the consequences of his action. Once you do that, you are now sending a message to everybody to say, this is no longer government as usual. And that's why I said I'll give the benefit of a doubt to this current president and hoping that he will keep doing what is right for this country. At the moment, he's making all the right moves, and I hope the government can immediately move for the low-hanging fruit, because petrol in July and August is not going to be 492 as it is in Lagos or 511 in Abuja. So Mogbe and Co. be ready for more price increase, but they need to put things in place to mitigate the effect of that.
Mr. Seller, just a quick one. I know my producers will not be happy about this, but hey, that report that your committee submitted, do you think it should be revisited? The names of those that were mentioned there, should they be prosecuted, or would you say it's time-bound?
Yes, it should be revisited. It should be revisited.
Nothing should be time-bound.
Audit carried out.
Exactly.
To ensure that whoever is behind it, they are all brought to book.
Thank you very much. Mr. ESELE, Peter ESELE is a former president of the TUC, and he joins us virtually for this conversation. Thank you.
Wow. That was a very detailed discussion by Peter ESELE, and I must say he acquitted himself very well. However, I will say, as with everything else, the government pays many of the organizations they work with to keep them quiet, to keep them on side in this great fraud. So, I'm not suggesting anything, but his eloquence in what he said and the things he talked about in terms of bringing people to book and what the kind of discussions they've had, it's really very illuminating and really enlightening. But the biggest issues here are the people running NNPC. How can you have somebody within a few months, $3 billion, 3 trillion naira profit from July, and then they say the money is paying for subsidy. What subsidy? And there's no infrastructure, and they pay. This is madness, and the people are suffering. So, yeah, very, very well said by Peter ESELE. I'm really, really glad that we covered this discussion at length, and it touched on a number of issues and a range of areas. You can go back and listen again, and you have your own thoughts about this. I was listening intently, and you see I would interject where I felt it was necessary. But of course, I keep reminding us all, what we must do now, we need to go on a drive. I'm going to come back and do a live broadcast. That drive must be to ensure that the operation fixed the refinery. That is what I will come and do on a live broadcast, maybe this afternoon. Be expecting something called Operation Fix the Refinery. And that is going to involve encouraging the people at the grassroots in the local government areas to become active participants in their governance, holding those elected officials to account, telling them that this report that they're asking for, that they talked about, we need to get that report out and begin to revisit that report. And every single person mentioned there, we demand that the government hold to account, pull into the courts. And also, on top of that, demand that the funds that they have taken from us, 80 to 90% of those funds are returned back into the public coffers immediately. No ifs, no buts. Because we need it to be able to sustain our economy. Just standing still and saying, "Oh, we'll have nothing." These guys are, if we do not take this action, then we are proving that crime does pay. And that is what we need to put a stop to. So President Tinubu, like I said, great job done so far in terms of the student loan, in terms of the ending the fuel subsidy, in terms of the unification of the exchange rate, i.e. north and south. So there's one currency, one exchange rate rather than the two and everything else, and also the target of 66% GDP. These are good things that you've really put on the table. But the real hard issue, the difficult problem right now is how to get our refineries working and how to fund that thing. Not to borrow more money. Those people who looted, the money must be taken back from those who looted to fix our refineries now. No ifs, no buts. So that's my view on it. I don't know how you see it. Ladies and gentlemen, you're of course watching Citizen Wide, the platform where we speak truth to power. I'll be back later on. Please share this broadcast if it resonates with you. We've been talking, you've been hearing Peter ESELE talking, talking about the subsidy issues and the various problems and the solutions to it. And ultimately, I'm in agreement that those who looted from us must be brought to book. Because unless we do that, then we do not have anything of a governance, a credible governance. And we are counting on, and we know that President Tinubu will do the right thing. And indeed, regardless whether or not they are friends or not, bring these people to book. That is what must happen. So far so good, but yeah, we'll press upon President Tinubu to really press the charges against those who blatantly looted from the nation. trillions and trillions of naira, and it has impoverished millions of people. This cannot go on. So President Tinubu, so far so good. We really need you to continue to push on now. This is a real important issue. We need those funds to fix the refineries ASAP. And we need you to have a task force, like I said yesterday, in place. And the task force having people who are capable to get those refineries working and giving us weekly updates on about the amount of processed oil, finished product that they're processing from each of those refineries. All those foreign refineries must start working. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. You have been watching Citizen, the platform where we speak truth to power. Before I go, I urge you, please subscribe to Citizen AY. Hit notification button, give us a thumbs up. Let me show you what you need to do to help us. We really need your support. So subscribe, hit notification button, of course, give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate you. One more time, subscribe to Citizen AY. Subscribe, hit notification button, give us a thumbs up. Thank you so very much. So we really appreciate your support. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this broadcast. What are your thoughts on it? Before I go, one more thing before I go, I really want to make sure that this is I impress upon you. Keep a copy of this, what you see on the screen. Take a screenshot of it. Take a screenshot of this. I can make it smaller. I want you to be able to take the entirety of it. You see that? Take a screenshot of that, yes, and save it on your phone. And in every local government area, share this. I've done it in Yoruba as well. Let me show you that as well in Yoruba to show you that there is things that we need to do. This is in Yoruba. I'll make it smaller again. This is the one in Yoruba. So you can take a screenshot of this. You see, take a screenshot of those two and share it in the community. Begin to tell them we have the power. Sovereignty belongs to us. And there is no constituted authority more powerful than the office of we, the citizens. Sovereignty belongs to us, and it is in using that sovereignty collectively that we get the things we need. The refineries must be fixed, but we need to begin to work together, actively participating in our governance and holding those we elect to office to account. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have of course been watching Citizen AY, that platform where we speak truth to power. I will be back later on, and I'll be watching now for the broadcast to be shared. Leave your comments. Let's hear from you. And I'll come back with further updates about Operation Fix the Refineries, which will be a live broadcast. Thank you for watching. You're watching Citizen AY, the platform where we speak truth to power. I'll be back later on. Thank you and bye for now.